Well, we are working towards it, but you're going to answer the question about migration and the labour market, or you just want to make a point about migration generally?
No, I think the point about migration generally is that it's generally confused, that most migrants to the United Kingdom do not come from the European Union.
Right.
That is the basic point, and I think people like Mr. Farage and others have thoroughly confused the British public that the answer to all the concerns they have about migration lie in Brussels, whereas I would say the answer actually lies in London. If you want to address that aspect of it, if we look back over the last 20 years, by a factor of 3 to 1, migration has been non-EU migration to the United Kingdom. Something like 4 million migrants in the last 20 years, of which nearly 3 million of them have come from outside of the European Union. Now that, I've noticed in the last few days, people have suddenly realised this. And so they're beginning to look at the whole question in a slightly different way. And when you ask people what really are their concerns about migration, it is not just to do with jobs, or it's not just to do with pressure on public services and things like that. It is to do with the nature of our country and our towns and cities and how they are changing. And I come back and I agree with Nigel, the point he made that, or I think Nigel made the point that people had no democratic say in how these changes had taken place. So somehow or other in the public consciousness, all this is wrapped up. And what they've been offered is the solution of, oh, well, it's Brussels' fault. And if we're out of the European Union and we no longer have free movement, that solves the problem. And what I say to people is, if we leave the European Union tomorrow, we still have an immigration problem.
Do you think it's a problem? Alan, I know 26, my doctor's from Egypt and the other GP is from Germany, and my mum, when she was in a nursing home, was cared by people from Philippines and Bulgaria. So is immigration a problem, or do immigrants actually work and support public services as well as form a drain on them, as some people would view?
In general, migration is not a problem, exactly the reasons that Jonathan pointed out. More people earning is more demand, and migrants bring slightly different sets of skills that complement the skills that we have here. So by and large, at a level of income, if one looks at it in terms of income, migration is basically not a problem. There are 1 or 2 bits of the labour market where it may be that there is some harm, but there are certainly corresponding parts of the labour market who distinctly gain from migration. So I think that the idea that the migration is solely an economic problem is indeed not a useful way of thinking about it. In terms of congestion, again, it seems that it's arguable that there is some congestion in some places. But the truth of the matter is that A&E departments aren't falling apart because of all the migrants. They're falling apart because they're running out of money relative to an aging population. School places are not short because of migrants so much as government policy, which is just cutting back on that sort of expenditure. So I think that there are localized problems of congestion, and one could address those with localized policies. There is possibly a cultural issue, and there I suppose you pays your money, you takes your choice. For at least some of us, and I suppose I have to admit this, I like migrants and I like Europeans as well. So I don't have any of the problems about, they're undermining British culture. But maybe I live in a little bubble.
May I just say, I like migrants. And I like Europeans as well. In fact, my son-in-law is a German. So my grandchildren are Anglo-Saxons. So that's not the point. Of course, we all, I'm sure, recognise that many people coming from other lands have contributed enormously to the richness of the United Kingdom in so many ways. That so many immigrants have come here and have integrated very well in our society and contribute enormously to who we are and the success of the United Kingdom. But there seem to be some who want just to set up their own communities and live a rather separate way and don't identify with the values of our mainstream society, and that is becoming increasingly difficult. When your children, when you have a local school where, if you like, 90% of the children are coming from a different background, and even the teachers who are instructing them are from a different background as well, you wonder where the mechanism is for conveying so-called British values and all of these things. So
what you're talking about there is not an EU problem.
Immigration is not just a sort of factor of labour.
No.
It's a far more significant element than that. And this is, if we don't recognise it, and I have to say, this has been the problem with our mainstream political parties. They've refused to recognise that there were some problems here.